Struggling Battle is not broken. So Struggling Battle is going to be a card that is going to be released in Circuit Break, and it's probably the headliner of that set in a lot of different ways. And the card has the following effect. So its first effect reads that you can, if you have no cards on your field, you can activate this card from your hand. So immediately, even though it's a trap card, the ability to activate it from your hand provides it the kind of utility that no real other card kind of has. In the trap lineup, there are very few trap cards that are allowed to activate from your hand, and cards like Makira and Temple of the Kings that would enable you to activate trap cards from your hand are all banned. So that's the first effect of the card. So immediately there's a lot of different uses for this. And then the second effect of the card is that at the end of the battle phase in which you conducted the activation of this card, doesn't matter when the activation was, you, depending on how many cards you control versus your opponent controls, your opponent will remove cards from their field until they control the same number of cards as you do. So immediately this brings up to mind, to me, a kind of similarity between this and Evil Swarm Exciton Knight, a card that many people thought to be broken for a very, very long time, that ended up getting banned 3 years ago during the end of the XYZ era, coming into Pendulums. But my contention is that Struggling Battle is not broken for a couple of different reasons. Notwithstanding its relationship to the banned, possibly soon-to-be limited Exciton Knight, Struggling Battle has the makings of a lot of different decent cards that can actually help to balance the game. For starters, Struggling Battle is a great card for someone who's going to go second. When a player is going second, they can activate the card from their hand. A lot of times, players will develop these massive, nigh-on indestructible board, and Struggling Battle, the difference of the cards, it doesn't target, so your opponent takes the cards, and then they must banish them face down instead of face up, so that they cannot use those cards for any kind of other plays, or they don't get pluses off of having the cards banished. But the real benefit to that is that it allows the game to balance by going second, discouraging players from creating gigantic, massive boards. However, it's not totally, first of all, the card is not totally unnegatable. It doesn't come with any kind of restriction allowing you not to negate the card. So if you have a Totally Awesome, or you have some kind of card that would automatically negate a spell or trap, let's say like Gladiator Beast Heraklinos, for lack of a better option here, you could negate Struggling Battle and prevent it from ever activating. And not only that, but if you have Totally Awesome and you do negate that effect, you can then reset the Struggling Battle to your side of the field. Granted, it wouldn't really be that much use to you, but it is still an option that you can take. The second factor that makes the card not as broken is that effect contributes at the end of the battle phase. So like Evil Swarm Exciton Knight, which took away your battle phase in exchange for a complete field nuke on a chain, Struggling Battle does roughly the same thing, allowing you the ability to remove a field nuke, or to field nuke your opponent's field. But in order to get the maximum amount of effect out of this card, you have to summon fewer to even no cards. If you can get this effect off against your opponent's full field, they banish everything on their field face down. However, you don't get your battle phase during that turn, so you're effectively robbed of a turn to create a OTK board. Granted, you can still develop your board turn 2, but that's relying on your opponent to have enough things to stop it. So I think that the interactions that Struggling Battle make are very, very similar to Evil Swarm Exciton Knight in that way, and that it is not a card that is really worthy of that much banning. I think the biggest problem with a lot of cards that come out now are the impressive interactions that they have during main phase 1 right before your battle phase. You can assemble a massive board of monsters with many, many different negations, and then during the battle phase, destroy everything that your opponent controls. Struggling Battle will also help players to get around the intrepid True Draco decks that are existing right now that have a lot of disruption, particularly in the name of both Masterpiece, but more importantly Dynamite, the latter of which allows you to activate the spell and trap cards of the deck directly from your deck. So you don't even set them, you just activate them right out, and as soon as those cards are activated, you can perform a tribute summon right away. So it basically creates, a scenario where players will assemble boards and try and get disrupted, but in order to wipe an entire field full of True Dracos, you have that opportunity. The third is that many decks out there have an insane amount of plussing. So even if you destroy a full field of monsters with Struggling Battle, and you can't destroy them, or you can't conduct your battle phase in order to get the maximum amount of use out of the card. Of course, you could conduct your battle phase still, but it would not, really be a advisable sort of option. That you cannot really conduct your battle phase when that happens. However, the sheer amount of plussing that a lot of these decks do, such as Zodiacs, being able to shuffle things back, True Draco, continuously being able to search, disrupt, and summon, as well as even things like, rogue picks like Fluffles that have the ability, even now without patchwork, to create massive hand advantage and field a ton of their Fright for XYZ monsters on the field, that it would be easy for decks such as these to be able to come back from, even having some of their stuff banished in a face-down position. It discourages, the card as well, discourages players from assembling massive boards of back row. Now, if you guys remember, back when Heavy Storm was a thing, players were running Starlight Road and other things in order to protect back row. However, players were not really assembling or setting that much back row. A lot of people were afraid of a Heavy Storm blowout and would run cards specifically designed to counter the Heavy Storm blowout, such as the aforementioned Starlight Road. But with this thing, it's a blowout in a way similar to that, but it's also a deterrence factor for players to, who assemble these massive boards, getting afraid to get blown out by a Struggling Battle without any kind of negation would not really be as much of an issue for them. So, with all of this being said, I have a prediction for Struggling Battle in the format. In a similar way to Ash, that a lot of people said was broken, Ash right now is not really doing too much. While it can negate a pool of over 1,600 cards, Ash Blossom does not destroy the card in which it negates. So it's effective mostly against things that will send other things to the graveyard, like negating a grass is greener. Having hard checks, for instance, like Psyframe Lord Omega, by the way of Psyframe Gear Gamma and special summoning a driver, further hinder Ash's capability and flexibility. In addition, the fact that it doesn't outright destroy things is a problem for it, especially with things like True Draco Diagram and or Dragonic Diagram and other cards like that it doesn't really create an environment in which those cards will be able to, which Ash would be able to have the maximum amount of negation capability that it could. But with Struggling Battle, it's not a totally broken card because it can be negated. A lot of decks have the flexibility to, and sheer plus a power to be able to get over the card. It has its effect activated at the end of the battle phase. The more cards that you have on your field, Struggling Battle becomes less and less useful. And 5, you can't really inflict damage to your opponent unless you're running a burn deck with this card. So, with all of those options in play and with all of those facts being considered, I think that Struggling Battle is a fantastic card. It's not a broken card, but it's a fantastic card to bring a little bit of balance to the very, very one-sided aspect of this game. it appropriately punishes, in at least right now, a way that players can't really get past, which is banishing things face down. That's sort of like the next way to permanently remove something from the game. But it appropriately punishes them with that, but it also gives value and benefit, especially to players who do not have that many things on the field. The fewer things you have on the field, of course, the more use you can get out of this. Granted, some decks may utilize it to a broken effect more than others, like the aforementioned Psy-Frame deck, which I think could get very, very big use out of Struggling Battle and possibly break the card. However, most normal decks, at least, would have to wait to use that card. So, with all of that being said, what do you guys think about Struggling Battle? Do you think it's the next broken pick, kind of like a lot of people consider Dimension Barrier to be? Or is it going to be something that goes the way of Exciton Knight, that is not really too broken, but then ends up getting banned because Konami wants to push a new mechanic? I personally think that Struggling Battle is a very, very nice balancing card in the game. I'm excited to see. I'm excited if a little bit, like a good kind of excited, but a little bit of apprehensive for the card to come to the TCG. I want to be right about the card. I want it to be a nice balancing force in the game, but I don't 100% know whether or not that's going to be the case. So, guys, tell me what you think in the comment section below. Do you like the card? Do you not? Do you think it's broken? Is it not? Give me your reasons. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching the video and for liking and subscribing to the channel. If you have not already, make sure to subscribe. Click that notification button so that you can be updated whenever we update and release new videos. But thank you guys so much for watching once again, and this is the Mermail Master with the Teen Time Riders YouTube channel, and I'm signing out. Catch you guys next time. Peace. Struggling Battle is not broken. So,